Faced with impossible choices, one wife had to pull her husband from a hospital to save his life. The stakes couldn't have been higher. Coming up on The Long Haul with Summer. So welcome to another episode of The Long Haul with Summer, where we're talking about real stories, real solutions, innovative treatment plans, and we're challenging traditional healthcare. We're so excited to have a very unique story with our guest today, Miss Laura Sink, and she's going to tell us all about her journey with COVID and her family's journey with COVID and what led that to us being here today to discuss it. So how are you?
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
I'm good. I've never felt better.
Good. Okay.
Well,
that's good.
Yeah. It's been a long journey, but it's been good.
Well, everyone, it's funny. Everyone says that journey. So if you would, before we talk about your journey, if you would give us a little bit of background about yourself, kind of introduce yourself and like where you're coming from, and then we'll get into kind of your journey and how we got here today.
Okay. I'm Laura Sink. My background was years ago in pharmaceutical sales.
Wow. Okay.
And I dealt in the world of anesthesia.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a lot of drugs, a lot of interaction. And I loved research.
Mm-hmm.
I love studying drugs. I love studying impacts of drugs. And so when COVID hit, I started doing research.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know enough, but started seeing things that made me question things.
Right.
And yeah, that just kind of led me to our journey of 4 years, my husband and I together. And I always said, he went in the hospital. I don't know if you want me to just keep going with it.
Keep going. Yeah.
My husband going in the hospital with COVID probably saved my life and the future generations of our children.
Well,
and I don't say that lightly.
Yeah.
But in August of 2021, we both got COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I weathered through it pretty well.
Yep.
Had a little bit of treatment, but I had also had SARS-CoV-1, the swine flu, which I think gave me some immunity to it, but I weathered through it pretty well. And my husband got it, and he was okay, but his oxygen was roughly in the 90s
Mm-hmm.
and having a little struggle breathing. And it was a Sunday afternoon, and our internist at the time told us we should go get an x-ray.
Mm-hmm.
The only place to do that was a hospital.
Right.
And
Yeah, because everything's close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we get there, and they take him and lock him down. Started giving him remdesivir, which is a horrific drug. And he stayed there for 4 days. And I watched him deteriorate. I only could, interact with him on FaceTime. Only could talk to him by phone.
It's terrible.
Yeah, it was in the heart of the phase. It was the Delta variant.
Yeah.
It was the heart of the phase where, I think the hospitalists came in 3 times, maybe 4 times, all in hazmat suits.
Yes, right.
There was not a whole lot of interaction.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got connected with Dr. Vaughn.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard for me to call him Dr. Vaughn
Yeah.
because he's a friend, Jordan.
Yeah.
And he was at the time in a home group through our church. So we knew him and got connected with him. And he told me, he said, I can treat your husband, but he's going to have to be out of the hospital to treat him. And I could not understand the concept of that.
Right. That's scary.
I was raised, and I was raised, my father was a surgeon. I was raised the utmost respect still for hospitals and, well, maybe not hospitals, but respect for physicians.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't understand the concept of why would I need to pull him out to get him help?
Right.
And so he was in 4 days of the hospital, and all I could do was pray.
Yeah.
And I got to a point, I just prayed, and finally the floodgates opened. And doctors inside the hospital that I still don't know to this day got word to me, get him out of the hospital, let Dr. Vaughn treat him, and if he gets worse, don't bring him back here. and that last one, I was like, what?
Yeah.
Where do you go?
Right.
It just didn't compute with me. I'm like, how could this be? Get him, don't bring him back if he gets worse. Where do you go? You
Right.
know? But
That's
at
crazy.
that point, it's crazy. But at that point, I knew I knew with 100% of my being that I was to get him out of that hospital.
Yeah.
I didn't know if he was going to live or die, but I knew I had to get him out of that hospital. And so that itself is a podcast of its own.
Right.
But you can leave the hospital, AMA, against medical authority. The problem is insurance usually doesn't cover it.
Right.
But we had decided regardless, AMA or not, we were walking out of that hospital.
Yep.
But during COVID and being in lockdown, it's just not an easy place to leave.
Right.
And that took a while. But we ended up pulling him out of the hospital. And thank God we did. He had never gotten an IV. He had not had fluids, lost 25 pounds in 4 days.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. And those things were hard for me to see. It was hard for me to see him when I picked him up. He didn't feel like he had a lot of fear, but with every drug I gave him, he questioned, because a lot of the drugs that they tried to give him, he didn't take. A lot of the morphine, we have a printout of everything we had to pay for, regardless if he took it, but he didn't take a lot of the suppressing drugs, which was great. But he was still trying to figure out.
Yeah.
When I was giving him, had so much fear.
Well, yeah.
So, anyways, he was in the hospital. We got him out, brought him home. He's coughing up blood. We have this multiple drug therapy that Dr. Vaughn has prescribed, and we put him on that. And I literally start watching him every single day come back to life. And in the meantime, I'm kind of back in research mode with Dr. Vaughn. And like there's these studies, I love studying what's happening in other countries.
Yeah.
In Brazil, there's a study coming out showing that that Eliquis is being used and having a tenfold increase over, I think it's Lovenox, the one they use in the hospital for microclots.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, this is important.
Right.
We should all know this. Our doctors should know this and be using this.
Right.
And so I watched every single drug start to bring him back, but I still wasn't sure if he was going to live or die. And I had this moment where I didn't want him to see any fear. He just needed to heal. And I overnight became a respiratory therapist. I became a dietitian. I became a pharmacist. I became his nurse.
Right.
But I was giving him more care than he was getting in the hospital.
For sure, yeah.
And we had people, another doctor get word to me, wake him up every 3 hours. In India, they're using this respiratory therapy. You wake him up, have him, move, go up and down, turn the oxygen up a little bit, but get him moving. We were doing that. He was coughing up blood at the time, but
so scary.
It was very scary, and it was horrifying. But I went one time. He was out in the den, and I went back to my closet, and I just got on my knees and started praying. And I was like, God, is he going to live? Help me, help him. Just praying over him. And all of a sudden, there was just a roar of thunder. It wasn't just this big bolt, but odd enough to stop me from crying and just stop. And I've never heard the audible voice of God until this point. And he just said, Laura, don't you know I got him out of the hospital? And I said, yes, I know you did. And he said, don't you know he's going to live so that you can share your story and you can help others? And of course, me and my being fully human, I said, well, I don't want that job. It's too divisive. And then I had this revelation, like, did I just tell God no?
Right.
Oh my gosh, So I asked for forgiveness, but I knew at that point he was going to live. And it was a long road, but he did live.
Yeah.
And since then, the interesting thing about our story is he's never had an issue with what they're classifying as long COVID.
Right.
And I think it's because he got what he needed at the time when he needed it.
100%.
As well as a lot of other factors.
Sure.
But it's hard for me to say the word long COVID. I don't like the word COVID in general.
Right.
Because it connotates so many different things to different people.
For sure.
And it's spike protein issues.
Yes.
It's a man-made spike protein. Wasn't meant to be in our body. Got in our bodies in COVID, as well as the spike protein in the vaccine.
Right.
It's all the same issue, the spike protein, whether it's through the vaccine, which makes that same toxic protein, or whether it's through COVID.
Right.
And so, anyways, he's done really well, and then I'm the one that's had the trouble.
Right. Isn't it bizarre?
Yeah.
And, I want to hear about your journey too, but I had a similar situation where actually in August of 2021 is when my whole family got sick. And my husband, he was not as sick as yours, but he also got pretty sick along with my daughter. And I was like sneezing. I mean, nothing. And then I'm the one who ended up with long COVID,
Right.
and my daughter did too, but my husband, nothing. And he was way sicker than I was. So
Yeah.
that's crazy to me. And you're right. It means something different to every person and it affects every person differently. And there's no way of knowing, like you would think your husband would have long-term, issues as
He still
sick
gets
as he
questions.
was.
They're like, how are you doing?
And I'm great. Yeah. And it's you and me.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So tell me about that. After he got better, then what happened?
He got better, and immediately after that, the trauma set in
Yeah.
of the whole experience. And so I called Dr. Vaughn. I'm like, you got to help me here.
Yeah.
This is, and he did, and I got better, but I got COVID several times.
Okay.
And to back it up, in 2000, I think it was like 2009, I had a lot of health issues. And I went to see a functional medicine doctor. I couldn't get any answers. I would wake up, I'd had debilitating chronic fatigue. I would wake up and I'd feel like every bone in my body was breaking. Just what I now know is inflammation. But, and so I went through this whole detox. I gave up gluten, I gave up dairy.
Yeah.
Changed my life.
Yeah.
And I did everything, and I felt like I got my life back again.
Yeah.
So we get to 2019, and prior to us getting COVID in 2021, I got COVID late January, early February of 2020.
Like before it was even.
Before the world shut down.
Yeah.
And we know it was COVID because it was horrific for me.
Yeah.
It was just terrible. I went to my internist right about that time. Everything was happening in Italy and other countries. And my internist called the CDT and asked if I could be tested. But the CDC said no because I had not traveled abroad. So they would not test me.
Okay.
This is prior to when at least our city had opened up the areas to go get tested.
Yeah, the drive-through testing.
Yeah, that started probably 2 or 3 weeks after my illness. But I didn't smell for 4 months. I mean, it was
yeah,
it was no doubt.
right. It's COVID. Yeah,
Right.
What else does that?
Right.
Yeah.
We just didn't know at the time. So,
Right. Wow. So okay. So you're saying you told Dr. Vaughn you needed help. You didn't feel well. So describe to me what does that mean? I mean, what were your symptoms?
So what happened is I got I got COVID a couple times. Didn't really even know it.
Yeah.
But just privy to the spike protein. And what it does for me and what I've learned is everybody's body's different. But my body doesn't methylate or break down things very well. I don't methylate the B vitamins. I have the MTHFR gene.
Right.
I just don't break down COVID spike protein very well. I also have the mold gene. I think it's the HLD gene that doesn't break down mold that I've learned.
Yeah.
So I'm one of those. But the cool thing is if you know it, you can take something and do something about it.
That's true. Yes.
And you can break it down.
Most people don't know those things unless you've been to a functional health provider or
Right.
someone who's testing for it, which most people are not going to.
Right. So what it looked like for me was all of a sudden my immune system was really weak. And I got hit with, just my immune system just bringing back up a lot of viruses that I'd had. Epstein-Barr. I had a Lyme titer I didn't know I had. All these things start surfacing up, and my ANA titer, autoimmune titer, went positive. And I honestly, one of the catalysts, I guess, was not just COVID for me. And what it was mold, oddly enough. So my daughter got mold illness from a house in college where she was in college. And I knew we had, here I have a 22-year-old daughter, and I knew we had to find a treatment for her
Right.
and do the right one.
Right.
Mold's very, all over the place.
Yeah.
So I started doing research on that. And I get to that and talked to some people out in Seattle and found a Dr. Jill Krista, who's a mold expert. And she has a CME class for doctors and nurses, 80-hour course online. So I took it.
Oh, wow.
And I like research.
Yeah.
So I took the class and obviously didn't get credit. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nurse.
Yeah.
I don't claim to be. But I had a lot of questions and I wanted to do the right treatment. And I get to one of the mycotoxins one day, and I read the page, and literally it leapt off the page to me. And I was like, this is me.
Yeah.
This is my issue, part of my issue. And so I went, got the test, got tested, and sure enough, I'm off the charts for that one particular mycotoxin. And so from there, I started realizing, all of these things, it's not just one thing.
Right.
It's a lot of things that parlayed for my story. It's the spike protein.
Yep.
It's, the fact that I wasn't absorbing any vitamins. I couldn't absorb B vitamins very well, or folate. But it's the mold issue, which is just wreaking havoc on my immune system, which I can't fight off any of the other. My frontline soldiers aren't performing very well if they're performing on all of this other.
Yeah.
And so it was just an eye-opening one thing after another. And that's why I always say my husband went in the hospital and probably saved my life.
Yeah.
Because I just don't break down and methylate these things very well. And I think there's probably a lot of other people. I hear so many people and what the spike protein has done. It has affected, there's no way it hadn't affected everybody in our country.
Right, for sure.
Some particular way.
Right.
But I think that the denial is the first step of deception. And a lot of people just want COVID to go away and just not even talk about it again.
Yeah.
But it is blatantly a health issue and a chronic issue in our society right now.
Yes.
And if we don't talk about it, we're never going to get better.
Yes. So one of my pet peeves, and I don't want to get on my soapbox, is everyone talks about the pandemic is over. And in our world, as you know, we're just on the tip of the iceberg. I mean, we are just now starting to see the long-term sequela. And you said something that resonates really with me hard. This is a chronic issue. I mean, I have long COVID myself. My patients ask me all the time, are you healed? You're healed. You're better. I don't know. Yes. Okay. I am breathing. There are not clots in my lungs. I am functioning, but I have inflammation. I have antibodies now against my pancreas. I mean, what has the spike protein done to us long term? I do not know the answer to that question. So I do think this is a chronic disease that we're dealing with and we're going to be dealing with. We're just now starting to see some of those repercussions. It's turning on autoimmune disorders. It's creating turbo cancers. I mean, we are literally on the tip of the iceberg.
It's not easy to look at.
No, it's
not easy to see.
Very scary.
But you can't unsee what you've seen.
Right.
You have to walk forward and look.
Yes.
Because, I mean, if we don't, then we're just, we're doomed anyway. But as far as that goes, you have to see what's going on. And it opened my eyes to so much more, just with all of our health journey. But one of the things, like when Jordan got, or Dr. Vaughn got his, I don't even know what the piece of equipment, the microscope.
Oh, the microscope? Yeah.
Immunofluorescent microscope. Okay. He was so giddy that day. But he gets that machine and he was like, I want y'all's blood. Mainly he wanted to look at Andy's because he'd been in the hospital.
Yeah, right.
We go down, give our blood. He calls, he's like, Andy's looks great. Laura, yours looks terrible. And
just what you want to hear.
Yeah, I was like, oh no. But I had these amyloids. And if I didn't know, I had all the brain fog was probably one of my biggest symptoms. And I just kind of thought it was me. You just you just write off like, okay, well, that's probably just how I am now. And it's not.
Right.
It's not. So I can do something about those amyloids now. And as far as taking, like, I'm on the nattokinase and some of the vitamins that help break down fibrin because I don't break it down well.
Right.
It's that same methylation. I don't break these things down well. And, just the fact that we have that microscope, and I don't think many people know, like, I think there's just 3 of them still. There may have the country in our country, but 2 are being from research and 1 is in Dr. Vaughn's office. And I hear all the time, I had this happen or people have strokes or whatever, but we can't see those microclots if it's not looked through that microscope.
Correct.
Those are not in our hospitals.
Right.
Those are not in our doctor's offices. So how do we know unless, anyways, that's been life-changing for me, just that I can break those down myself and my the brain fog lifted.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it's that.
Yeah. The brain fog is a scary thing. I had that a lot when I was sick too. And when you're sick and you're trying to get better and you're trying to research, you can't because you have that, block. And it's hard. And there were times like maybe I didn't recognize I was having the brain fog, or I would be trying to tell someone something and I couldn't remember my address or my phone number or how to drive somewhere. I mean, weird stuff, and they sent me to neuropsych and I had cognitive retraining and all the things, all the evaluations. I mean, and I kept saying to them, but I was fine a month ago, this doesn't just happen, something is wrong with me. I don't just forget my address all of a sudden, but the brain fog is scary because it blocks you, I think.
It's very scary.
It's scary. It blocks you in that pathway of like learning and research because you can't think. I know now that my brain wasn't getting oxygen because of the microclotting.
Right.
But you don't know that at the time.
Yeah. And I just wonder, and I do not know, but all of the increase in dementia and increase in, are we missing something with the microclots? Are we missing something with the amyloids in the brain from this that we could be actively doing?
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting you bring up the microscope. Actually, I was working with Dr. Vaughn as a patient at that time when he ordered that microscope on eBay.
Yeah.
And we were collecting vials of my blood, like 12 every week that I was on treatment and looking at. And I was actually on the Zoom call when he learned how to do that with Dr. Pretorius in South Africa. I was in Baltimore at Johns Hopkins being seen for no good reason. They did not help me at all. And he was in Birmingham, and I think he had a sample of my blood, actually. And she was in South Africa, and we were on a Zoom call learning how to use the microscope that he had gotten off of eBay. And it's crazy to think about how far we've come. That was in 2022 to where we are now, just in our own clinic and our own team. But when I look outside of that, in the United States, we have really not come that far. And we're almost 6 years into this disaster. And that is
It's
scary.
amazing to me. I loved looking back at what other countries did.
Yes.
And it's also very scary.
It is scary.
We took a trip after that, and we were in Jordan.
Yeah.
Second world country that was pretty primitive.
Yeah.
And they outperformed us in COVID. And I just was blown away how first world countries were in the bottom half of dealing with everything regarding COVID compared to second and third world countries. That should never be.
No.
And I think it started, our healthcare is set up in a system, and I saw this when I'd call on hospital pharmacies. It's a business. We turned it into a business, and and one of my biggest complaints is we took the gift of the doctor's mind out of the doctor.
For sure.
And we stifled them. We bought them up in groups, corporately. We said, you can do this, you can't do that. We took away their minds to be who they're called to be and to be our physicians.
Yep.
And that's what happened to us in the hospital. It wasn't, people always ask me, what hospital were you in?
Yeah.
It didn't matter.
You're right.
They were all the same because
is.
it was an NIH protocol.
Yep.
And if you went outside that protocol, you were going to the hospital would have been sued. So they're not going to go out of that protocol.
Right.
They're self-protecting their business entity.
Yep.
And when you understand that, you start looking at other areas of medicine and how we're handling this, how we're handling that. And you start to question. And you don't have to be a doctor, a nurse, or, a brain surgeon to start questioning.
No.
To start asking questions. And it's okay to do that.
For
this
sure.
is your health.
Yeah. Well,
one of the other things too, when you said the brain fog of, address. So right when Andy got better, I bought an oxygen concentrator. I called Jordan and I said, I need to have an oxygen concentrator. I have a, 88-year-old mother in Louisiana. If she were to get it, I could take that, get her the medicine and keep her out of the hospital.
Right.
And then Dr. Vaughn started calling me. He was like, you still have that oxygen? I need you to take it here. We got up to 6 oxygen concentrators, and I would take them, different places all over Birmingham to give people oxygen while the medicines would have time to work. Because we were behind.
Yeah.
We were fighting time because there was no treatment.
Right.
And that experience was absolutely amazing. But I started seeing, I'm taking it to physicians' homes that either they themselves were sick or they had a loved one or child or primarily adult were sick. There was no children. And I was like, wait a minute. These are physicians, primarily at, our largest institutions here. How are they not able to treat themselves? Or why can't, I could not comprehend that. And it was just kind of eye-opening and telling that this is the system we're in now.
So there's a couple of things I want to touch on, but one thing I do want to say is I had a physician after I had met Dr. Vaughn, and he started giving me one of the medications he prescribes, to deal with the microclots, the Eliquis. I had a physician, he was in complete panic mode that I was on this medication, right? You're going to bleed. This is a risk. I can't believe you're doing this. Then in that same conversation, admits to me that he himself, when he got COVID, took that medication.
Wow.
Right. So, here I am as the patient and also a colleague, an informed, educated person making an informed, educated decision to take this drug. You're telling me not to do it and the risk of it. Then you're telling me in the same breath you did it yourself because you thought it was a good idea for yourself. That was one of those pivotal moments for me, too, to know this is messed up. Like, you would never prescribe this to me in the entity that you're in, but you took it yourself to protect yourself. So that was an eye-opening moment for me to know I got to get out of this healthcare system and get out of these check boxes that the government has created, the NIH, the CDC, and you don't fit this check box or you do. You get this infusion or you don't, based on their, whatever they're checking off their list. And luckily I found my way to Dr. Vaughn, who can think outside the box. The other thing I wanted to circle back to is I knew about you long before I met you because Dr. Vaughn talks about you all the time as the oxygen angel.
He gave me that name, yeah.
Yes. And I don't think that people, you described it a little bit, but I don't think people understand. Can we talk a little bit more about what was going on during that time? I mean, these are people that you were visiting of Dr. Vaughn's patients who were sick with COVID, who anyone else would have gone to the hospital, gone to be admitted to the hospital, but he knew that was not the right thing to do.
Oh, yeah. And we did at that time, too, after Andy.
Right. So tell me a little bit, what did that look like?
So I wanted everyone, when I was told I need to share my story, that can help others, I wanted everybody to know that these drugs can work.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just everybody was, right at that time when we got better, the whole ivermectin campaign, horseworming campaign came out.
Lovely.
And I was like, no. That was one of the drugs that helped us. Yeah. It wasn't the only drug.
Right.
But it was one of, very important one early on because it's an antiviral. And I couldn't believe, I was contacting, I contacted radio stations, TV stations. I contacted Rick and Bub. I contacted, let me tell our story. It maybe can help somebody. The only person who picked up the story was 1819 News. And they printed a piece, one size does not fit all, which is the whole point of medicine.
Yes.
We're all completely different.
Correct.
One size. So the word protocol does not work in a pandemic.
Right. Nope.
It's not a one size fits all. And so when I just wanted, how can I help? I'm supposed to share. How can I help? How can I, let people know and give them time to get these medications in them? Like if I saw my husband come back after 13 days coughing up blood,
right,
what could it do early on?
Yes.
And so when he called and said, go out and, take this oxygen here, take that whatever, to this house, these people, one of the things, I may have given them oxygen, but I gave them hope.
Right.
They were so scared.
Yeah.
And we were there too. I get it. but I saw it work. And so I could give them a little hope. And that to me is more healing than any drug.
For sure.
And so that's just kind of what I did for a while until, I mean, it seemed to last forever.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, and to Dr. Vaughn's credit, I would have somebody else. Once that story went in 1819 News, it was amazing. We get calls from Virginia, from Arkansas, from different places saying, help, how do we get treatment? And I would just, you know, text and forward on the people locally, the people, you know, outside, you know, how do we help them? And he would take people 24/7.
Yeah.
And I always say the real hero is his wife, Catherine, because he was 24/7 for years.
Yeah.
Much to his credit, though, a lot of people lived, including my husband. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like he's still 24/7.
yeah.
I mean, his mind never turns off.
Right.
He's sending me articles in the middle of the night, and he's up with the microscope early in the morning before clinic. He's flying to DC to testify, you know. I mean, I remember the day that I met him in his office, and I'd been so sick, seeing everybody, all the specialists. And when I talked to him, he showed me the PowerPoint about all the things, you know, and all the things he can do to help. Hope. That is exactly what I had at that moment, which is what you described about, you know, going to all these patients. It didn't matter how sick I felt at that moment. He gave me the hope I needed to get better. And it wouldn't have mattered what he said. If he would have told me to swallow a bucket of razor blades, that's what I would have done. Because he would listen to me, and he gave me hope that whatever he was doing, you know, could help me overcome this. And that was the first time I'd had that in years. But I think that carries people a long way.
Oh, it carries people. Yeah, absolutely. And my husband and I mean, we really haven't been that sick compared to a lot of people that I've come in contact with through all of this and with all the long COVID and everything. But there are things we can be doing.
Yes.
And that's what's so frustrating.
Yeah.
There are so many things. If we would just look and go back and look, there are things that are working that can make us healthier, things that we didn't use before that we should be using, things that we didn't see before.
Yeah.
And, you know, I hope people out there hear that there's hope for you know, we didn't get there overnight. We're not going to get back overnight. It's going to take a while.
Yeah.
But we can start that journey and get better.
Yeah.
For sure.
No, for sure. And I mean, it takes people advocating. It takes people like you. Patients always ask me when they get better and, you know, all the things, and they've been through all the same doctors that I've seen. What can I do to help? And the one thing I say to them is, tell your story. Tell your story. Go to see those specialists. Tell your story. Tell them how you got better, you know, because it's not a matter of who's right or wrong, right? It's that we're trying to get more people to help take care of all of these people, which is one of the arguments I had with my specialist. I don't even care if you believe me or whatever, but you have the resources to help more people than I do. And if you could at least listen, we could partner together to help more people. It's not about proving right or wrong.
Right.
You know, I don't care if you think Dr. Vaughn is right or wrong. You know, you've made that very clear to me that I'm making the wrong decision, but it's not about that. He is right, actually. And it's because he was curious and brave and stepped outside the box. But I'm not asking to fight that battle.
You have to have the courage and be willing to look.
Yes. And
that means stepping outside of the system sometimes.
It does. And to say, I don't know. And if I would have had a specialist along the way that would say, I don't know, but they were so sure of themselves that there was nothing wrong with me because their test said so, that was just it, you know.
But that just gets back to the test, you know.
Well, right. You didn't order the right one.
The microscope.
Right.
I mean, you can't see it.
Right. No, you
except
definitely
3 microscopes in our country.
Absolutely. So, and, you know, one of the things you talked about, you know, research outside the country, I had found some studies in Italy where they were doing these lung perfusion scans, and I had all sorts of scans on my lungs, and of course there was nothing wrong with them. And I had asked specifically for these particular scans they were doing in Italy where they had found perfusion defects. And they were like, absolutely not. There's no reason to do this. All your other scans were normal, you know, but Italy was doing it and they were finding all these abnormalities. I ended up circumventing kind of the system and getting one of those scans, and it in fact was abnormal, the same way as they were finding in Italy. And after I did that, they were furious with me for what? I mean, now I have an
taking your
abnormal
health
cyst.
in your own hands.
Right. I don't understand, and then they kind of dismissed me because I had, done that. But here I am now, a patient with clots in my lungs. I have proof of it on this scan, and now you're dismissing me, won't even respond to my messaging.
There's so much information out there, and there's so much
Yes.
data out there.
Yes.
And that's what I kind of love doing, and that's what I was taught to do.
Yes.
Is to how to read a study.
Yeah.
And how to debunk the study, honestly.
Well,
and
right.
so, because that's what the pharmaceutical companies taught me to do,
Right.
But, and I learned early on, you can get a study to prove anything you want.
Right.
And so how you look at those is, you got to figure out who's funding them and where they're coming from. But I started noticing early on, and this was before Andy went in the hospital, I would find information and I would hear things, and I was like, wow, that's interesting. Different bits and pieces about here's how this vaccine's made, this is how this is working, and I was just really interested in it. And I would hear something and I'd go back to find it, and I never could find it. And I thought, it just must be me. I didn't realize how censored it was being. And still, there's still a good bit of censorship, but there's so much data and so much information out there. And people always say, what's the one thing you tell people? And I always say, do your own research.
Yes.
You do not have to be, a doctor to read these studies.
Right.
You do not have to be, fit this particular narrative to understand this.
Right.
And doing your own research, which I wish I had done way long ago. I blindly trusted a lot. But everybody can do their research.
For
and
sure.
it's out there.
It is.
And there's a lot of good information.
There is. So let me ask you a question, though. And with your experience in the traditional medical system, if you brought forward your own research like I did, how was that met? With resistance or acceptance? Or
So, the people that I deal with, Dr. Vaughn, some functional medicine, they're not resistant to that or learning.
Right.
So I've never been faced with like you have in a different setting. I will say, since then, there's been some other issues that I'll bring forth, and they're resisted. And they don't, I think, like I said, denial is the biggest first step in deception. And people just don't want to look. They'd rather live where they are now and not see. Ignorance is bliss. I get that, but
yeah. So if you could say one thing to providers who maybe are inside the traditional medical system, but they are curious, but they're scared to step outside the box. I mean, what is something you would say to them after what you've seen and what you know?
I mean, I would say a couple of things. I would say, find like-minded people and unite. I would actually back up and speak to our politicians and say, let's get the authority back to the doctors to treat patients.
Okay, yep.
And we tried that in COVID. Soon after our story, I went down with Rebecca Rogers' Sparrow Clinic, who does a phenomenal job. Went down to Montgomery to speak to a Senate Health Committee. And they were trying to pass a bill to give doctors the right to treat COVID without penalty. That sounds pretty clean, pretty simple.
Right.
Yeah. But it wasn't. It didn't get passed.
Right.
That shouldn't happen.
Right.
Our doctors should have the right to treat without penalty.
Yes.
They should not be owned by an entity that tells them what they can prescribe, what they should prescribe, how they should treat.
Right.
And we need to get that back into the hands of our doctors because,
Yeah, I mean, I found that a lot along, I think, my pathway too, is I don't think they would admit that, but the fear of losing their job or retaliation if they aren't following those specific, guidelines that were all set forth. And
some of them are trapped. I mean, I've seen the literature they get from their entities. I'm trying not to to name anyone, but there was a lot of threats. They paralyzed them.
Yes.
Is what they did.
Well, and I will say I'm reformed. I'm part of the traditional medical system, and I was taught that way. I was brought up that way in medicine. I mean, and you trust in those things, the governing bodies and the guidelines and all the things until you don't, right? And it took me becoming a patient to see all of those things, to realize that this is a broken system. And I'm grateful for that opportunity to become a patient, to know, oh my gosh, like this is, I cannot be a part of this any longer, because we are not helping people with that pathway. I mean, you've got to be able to do what you think is best for the patient. One of the things I'm so grateful for about working on Dr. Vaughn's team is, if you're curious about something, okay, like let's investigate. Let's talk about it as a team. Let's figure out what tests we need to do. Let's talk and collaborate outside the country, inside the country, whatever he feels like we need to do. We're doing that.
Collaboration. Yes, a great word, because we've lost collaboration.
100%. Well, even as I would see my different specialists, none of them were talking to each other. I mean, he's the first person who looked at my body as a whole, instead of my lungs, my heart, my brain. Like, no one considered that this affected everything and how those, played in together.
Yeah.
Until I had a conversation with him. And that's a really scary realization. I feel like I basically have had to unlearn everything I knew and learn all over again.
Yeah.
Because you're conditioned to think in that way and to follow guidelines that, I mean, honestly, who made those? I don't know.
Yeah.
With studies
when you start looking into that gets even really scary.
Right. And you said this early on. Once you see, you can't unsee. And once I saw, I can't unsee. And I have friends in the medical field too who ask me questions, and they inquire and they're interested about my journey professionally and like personally as a patient. And I forewarn them. I will tell you what I know and what I've seen, but once I tell you these things and what we're doing and what I've done and what has happened to me, there is no turning back from that. You have a decision to make at that point. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, my husband and I always say it's just planting seeds.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite quotes is, they tried to bury us. They just didn't know we were seeds.
That's right.
And so, but you plant these seeds. It's hard to see. It was hard for me to see. You know, I'm speaking in 4 years of what I've been through.
Right.
And if I had to know everything that, first week, I couldn't have handled it.
Right.
But you can't look back.
Yeah.
And there's so much we can do.
Yeah.
And the body is an incredible system.
Yes.
And there's just, I just want to encourage people that we can heal from this.
Yeah.
How that looks, I don't know.
Right.
But I know that this was meant to harm, but there is good going to come from it and out of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's healing for a lot of people. And I've seen a lot of people. And, a lot of times I just keep thinking of this one particular person, but I'll just see something and I'm like, that person has spike protein injury.
Yeah.
And that person needs help.
Yes.
And I don't know what it is, but it is so blatantly clear to me.
Yes.
And just getting them help, and sure enough, they'll get help, and there's hope, and then there's treatment.
Yeah.
But with you, there's a lot of usually people see multiple doctors.
Oh yeah.
Before we didn't have that. That wasn't part of our story. I can't imagine. I think probably God knew I couldn't see multiple doctors because I couldn't have handled it.
Yeah.
I probably would have, blown up. But most people see 5, 6, 7 doctors, telling them it's in their head. This is not in your head.
Right.
This is affecting all of us.
Yes.
Whether you were vaccinated or not is irrelative.
Yep.
Everybody's body's differently.
Yep.
I've got genetic predispositions. I've got the PO1 gene where I don't break down fibrin.
Same.
I've got the MTHFR, like I said. I've got the mold. I mean, I have all the genes that don't break down anything.
Right.
But I'm glad because I know now.
Yeah.
And I can break it down myself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and it takes, I will say, and talking to you, and I've talked to so many patients who are not medical, right? I mean, you have some background in pharmaceutical sales, but there are a lot of people who are not medical, but they are so educated.
Oh, yes.
And they tell me
More so than
things.
me.
Oh,
Yeah.
and me. And they have learned things because they have spent years going to doctors, researching this stuff. They're bringing me knowledge about things they've tried, things they know, research studies. I mean, it's mind blowing to me. And I, like Dr. Vaughn, I mean, he is so receptive to those things. And I try to be receptive to those things. But in the traditional healthcare system, when I would do those things, that was not received well at all. And, you know, the puzzling thing to me is there is no textbook for COVID. Like, we're writing it now. It's a novel virus we know nothing about. So the least you can do is say, I don't know.
But we know about pandemics, and we know the first thing in a pandemic you don't do is vaccinate an entire population.
Right. I mean,
And so there you start off, you know, a little bit behind. Because with a true pandemic, you would vaccinate the, you know, high risk, and that, you know, the rest would evolve and you would create less variants.
Right. So this is a red flag from the beginning. But, you know, if anyone would have said anywhere along the way, gosh, we just don't know, we're going to step back and look into this and figure it out. And, you know, to your point, other countries are still way ahead of us. You know, it's crazy to me. I will say there have been a lot
you
of
start looking down the, maternal death rate. You know,
Oh, yeah.
You know, fetal death rate.
Yes.
We're low.
Yes.
We're not where I thought we were before.
No, it is scary. I will say I have felt very encouraged over the last couple of months. I am not into politics. I don't care what side of the fence that you're on, but what is currently being discussed at a very high level is at least acknowledging the presence of things, right? Long COVID is being discussed at a very high level. Lyme is being discussed. I mean, we're at least having acknowledgement of the food industry. We're talking about the things that we're eating. All
I know
of a
it's
sudden,
very encouraging.
It is encouraging.
For the longest time, I had I can't even remember what year it was. Maybe 2005. I had a tick that I had captured, and they always said, you know, leave it in your refrigerator and then get it tested. And for some reason, I had a friend that knew where to send it in Bethesda. So I send this tick off in Bethesda, and it's active for Lyme.
Lovely.
But then for years after that, they were like, oh, no, Birmingham, there's no Lyme here. I'm like, no, it was out of my yard. I have this document now.
Yes.
And they'll still say that. And it just like floored by that. When you said Lyme, it just made me think
It's crazy to me because ticks don't cross state lines. Deer don't. Like, you know, yes, I mean, there's so much skepticism, you know. I think to think beyond what is in the textbook, what you know, and I think there's red tape where those people are not allowed to do that. And I can say, coming from a system like that, it's not encouraged to, you know, to do that. And I'm thankful for Dr. Vaughn, his courage to like, why not? Yeah, step out, try things. And the other thing is, these things are not illegal. Ivermectin is not illegal. These drugs are not illegal.
Yeah.
It
was safer than half the over-the-counter stuff I was taking.
100%. Well, and that's what I tell people. If you read the insert for Tylenol, which I don't even want to bring up.
Well, no, if I thought I was getting a headache, I'd take Tylenol.
Yeah.
That crosses the blood-brain barrier. I mean, you know, and this is way before the Tylenol scandal and all this.
Right.
But yeah, I stopped taking that, and that improved my health drastically.
I mean, it's just, I don't know. I feel a little bit, and I have been myself brainwashed. I do feel brainwashed. And I think a lot of us have been brainwashed, you know, with the traditional healthcare system. That's just what we do and what we're supposed to do. You go to the doctor, you listen to what they say, or you don't, and then they're not going to see you. I mean, that's just the way that it works. It's some sort of like power, you know, hierarchy.
Power based on fear.
Yes. And I do not feel that way as a patient or as a teammate with Dr. Vaughn at all. I mean, he completely validated what I said as a patient and certainly as a teammate. Like, anything that we bring to the table is always like well received. Well, so you kind of alluded to this a little bit, but if you could say one thing to policymakers, I know we talked about what would you would say to a provider, but if there's one thing you could say about all of this to policymakers, what would it be?
Stop listening to lobbyists.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just, when I went down there, it's just, I don't know. It was just a dark place.
Yeah.
And that one visit was very telling.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we found out at 10 o'clock the night before that this was thrown onto however they do politics, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, well, I'll go. You know, 10 o'clock at night, I decided to go the next morning at 8. That room was full of lobbyists, of self-interest. I mean, I was just floored.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it just, there are some great politicians.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. And I was connected that day with a group of men that, I mean, I just wanted to run. I wanted to go home and shower. That's how I felt when I left that place. And a friend of mine called me up, and they were having a prayer group with a few of politicians, that some of which I had gotten to know through the COVID experience. And I mean, those men are incredible and fighting. So I'm not, you know, I don't want anybody to think I'm dogging politicians, doctors. This is just part of my journey and what I've seen.
Right.
And I just think we have to get back to, you know, I can't understand why that didn't pass, because in the self-interest of everybody, you'd want your doctor to have the right to treat you.
Including the people making
without
the
penalty.
law. Yeah, making or fighting against that law. Wouldn't you want your doctor to be able to treat you?
But a lot of people on those medical authority boards are out of one institution.
Right. Yes, I understand.
And so, you know, a lot of that's, you know, business-oriented, trapped, you know. When you've got one of the largest institutions, I think it's like 6 for NIH funding, you know where the authority is.
Right.
And the ultimate authority.
Yeah, which is...
And that was the same protocol they gave my husband in the hospital. And so
yes,
it didn't work.
No. No. And he got better coincidentally.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, he only had 3 out of the 5 doses of remdesivir, thank God. But,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
But just no IV
yeah, which is crazy.
was really the clincher.
If you had one thing to say to patients, we've talked about providers, what you would say, we've talked about politicians, but what would you say to a patient? Just one thing about...
You are qualified to do your own research, number one. And you don't have to live like this. I think a lot of people out there have, you know, for me, I wasn't one of these drastic stories. You know, I felt bad actually calling Dr. Vaughn because he had so many more extreme patients, you know. And so I would say, especially to those people, you don't have to live like that. These can be problems due to your immune system, the way you break down things, the spike protein, repetitive manufacturing of spike protein. So I would just encourage those people to look into this.
Yeah.
You know, you're far greater than your worst day, you know.
That, oh my gosh, yes. I mean, that is so true. I mean, and I tell people, keep saying, keep talking, keep going until someone, doesn't have to be Dr. Vaughn, but someone who is like-minded like that, who will listen and say, okay, I don't know, but I can help you. I'll try to help
a lot
you.
off due to aging.
Yes.
But we're not supposed to be aging this fast.
Also that. Also, you know, and to me, when I was sick, I'm like, I am 40. I don't understand. I should not have brain fog like this and not remember my address. I mean, it's not, you know, that doesn't make any sense to me. No, we write a lot of things off. And I'll talk to patients like, well, I'm getting older. Maybe that's why I can't breathe as well and exercise all of a sudden after COVID, all of a sudden. I mean, you know, those things are not coincidence.
Right.
You know, I don't care how old you are. I mean, I have 90-year-old patients who are completely active and then all of a sudden they're not after the vaccine or after, you know, COVID. So.
And I still think there was such a lack of education early on about what COVID was. And we were all learning too. But the fact that it was not a pulmonary issue. It was a microvascular issue.
Yes.
And it affects the cells and the microvascular system, the vessels, all of that. And so when we thought we needed oxygen,
Yep.
it wasn't that we had the pneumonia or the pulmonary type issues.
Yes.
It was that the oxygen was not oxygenating our red blood cells, which then therefore goes in to help us breathe.
Yep.
And so, people still might be coughing or whatever, having this issue. It's microvascular.
Yep.
And we've got to look there because it's real evident there.
Yeah.
And it, can lead to treatment from there too.
Well, unfortunately, I feel like a lot of people are still on that pathway of thinking, and they're not on the microvascular, they, dispute the fact of the way that we're treating this disease, because, these people are sick, they need a ventilator and, but not the root cause of any of it. And I mean, those people mostly died because we, didn't address what
I have
was
no
going on
doubt
with
if
them.
Andy had stayed in the hospital, it would have led to that.
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy.
It just, the body can only handle so much.
Yeah, and he wasn't receiving the treatment that we know he needed for the disease that he has. I mean,
well, and he wouldn't have had any fluids.
Yeah, which is
but
crazy. Shifting gears a little bit, I know that you've done some work with Dr. Vaughn's foundation that he created, and that's kind of what we're here doing and talking about. And so what motivated you? I mean, I know that you and your husband both are patients of Dr. Vaughn's, but what kind of motivated you to continue down that pathway and get involved in the foundation and doing all the things that you're doing?
I think for me, it goes back to just answering that call in my closet. What can I do next?
Yeah.
What can I do next? And when you back up to 2021, 22, I thought, well, this will be a few weeks and everybody else will step in.
Right.
But it never did, But how can we get patients help? They need to have what we had. Maybe it looks different. Obviously, it's a different time and different age. But how can we get these people help that so desperately need help? And so, it came through, at the time, the state was awarding money to treat COVID. And we were looking for a place to do that where it could start research, where it could start whatever. And that's where the Microvascular Research Foundation came up with. That name had to be legally long, but it's a very hard name to remember.
Yeah.
mbresearch.org is the short clip of it.
Yeah. How
that looked, I didn't know. I just knew that was going to be a 503c and that we needed to set it up. And I just helped Jordan set that up.
Yeah.
But I didn't. Y'all are doing all the work. I just got the ball rolling a little bit. But
that's amazing. What vision do you have for the future? I mean, I feel like we're a tiny army but mighty, and we're doing this in part to educate people and to get them involved and to get patients help. But what vision do you have for the foundation moving forward?
I think this chronic illness that spike protein caused it's not going away.
Yeah.
And if others aren't going to treat it, we have to have a place to treat it. We have to get these people help. And the Microvascular Research Foundation is part of that. It also, and you can answer this better than I could, but I'm excited about all the research.
Yeah.
Because we do have 4 years of Dr. Vaughn treating people.
Yes.
And I mean, he saved everything. And so we have a lot of research and a lot of data that can be used to hopefully help others.
Yes.
And good research.
Yes. Yes. Well, and I certainly can speak to that. I mean, we have he's treated thousands of people. And luckily, he was smart enough to embed things along the way to capture all of that data. I can tell you, as part of my job as the director of clinical research, we have partnered with other people who are like-minded, who have also done the same thing. And we are working with people who are going to help us pull things out of that repository of data so we can start, because at the end of the day, everyone wants evidence, and I would say to my providers, not Dr. Vaughn, I am the
You
evidence.
are the best evidence.
Look at me, I'm better, but that's not good enough. Everybody wants something printed
My
on a
husband is
paper.
evidence.
Yes, he's evidence. I am evidence. He saved me from what could have happened next. But so there is a huge repository of data. I'm very excited about the possibilities. I mean, I feel like the momentum is moving forward. We certainly need more help, more people, but we're getting there. And I think back to the first time I met him, before any of this even existed, we've definitely come leaps and bounds. So I'm encouraged.
I'm just so encouraged by what y'all are doing. I mean, I've stepped back from organizing it, but what y'all are doing, if people could see what is happening in the city of Birmingham,
Yeah.
our own city doesn't even understand it.
No.
I mean, what people are flying in from all over the world. I mean, it's
crazy.
Unbelievable
Yeah.
what is happening.
Yeah.
And how much help people are getting
Yep.
on the clinical side, but then also the research that's and I've met with a lot of those people, and it's exciting.
Yeah.
Because I know that each step of that way is hopefully going to help somebody.
Yes.
Like we got the help.
Yes.
And help them get better.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the whole goal.
No, I'm very excited. I'm very excited to be a part of the team. At the ribbon cutting at our new clinic, someone asked the question to Dr. Vaughn, how do people know about you and your clinic? I mean, it is incredible because I ask patients that all the time. They fly in from Canada for me to do a procedure on them, and I'm like, how do you even know about this?
That question though was interesting to me. It was just somebody not with the clinic. Who's going to come here was the question, and I thought, how do we not know that everybody needs to come here?
Yeah.
I mean, I can't. Right. We can't even handle the people walking in the door now.
Right.
But that question is the epitome of how we're viewing this
right
in the wrong way, because people are still unable to see, unable to hear or get this knowledge.
Yeah.
That, wow, we need 10 of these clinics.
More. Yes.
Or more.
Yes.
Yeah. And so that was just an interesting question.
Yeah. It is. Well, and you're right. I mean, there are now 4 of us, Dr. Vaughn and 3 nurse practitioners, and then Carrie, our Lyme specialist. But we're already, busting at the seams. We've got a new clinic, we've got this new space, but we're already out of room. We're out of time. We're out of, us, and so because people are just
my hope and prayer is that there will be young doctors.
Yes.
That will be coming through this system now with questions.
Yes.
And that they will open their eyes, because there is sadly going to be a lot of treatment needed.
Unfortunately, yes.
And a lot, and Dr. Vaughn can't do it alone.
No.
And so my hope and prayer is for young doctors, because medicine's going to change and it's going to look a little differently.
I agree.
And there's a huge opportunity for a doctor to, come along, learn how to question.
Yeah.
And then take the authority and not be in a system.
Yeah.
To be able to be a doctor.
Yeah. Well, I think things have shifted. I can remember when I first got out of grad school, there were a lot of people in private practices, right? And that's where I first went to work, in private practice. But then all of those, the overhead was so great, and all the things.
Yeah, and there were benefits too. Yeah.
They all they were getting, the huge hospital entities were uptaking all of these private practices because they couldn't stand alone anymore.
Right.
And that is where I think we lose, because if you are in private practice, you're not mandated by all this red tape. You have the ability to think outside the box, but then you lack the resources.
It's hard. I mean, I saw that with my dad's own practice, way back when, they had the good x-ray technology and and it's appealing. You go in a group and you share that. That makes sense.
It's cheaper.
A lot of that,
it's safer. You're not on call as much because you have 45 other people who are sharing that with you. I mean, yeah, I know, but I think. And listening to, Dr. Vaughn speak at the HHS roundtable along COVID, it's interesting because they are now talking about the private sector and they're talking about investing in the private sectors, because those are the people who are on the front lines treating, and they're like really down in the trenches with all of this stuff. So I felt very encouraged by listening to those conversations, and they're being looked at now as, someone of value and importance, I mean, these are the people in the front lines. I mean, Dr. Vaughn never closed his clinic during COVID when everyone else did. Everybody, you couldn't go anywhere to be seen. And he's testing people in the parking lot doing whatever.
One of the first to get the monoclonal antibodies.
Right. So,
which was right after Andy.
Yeah. So, so I am very encouraged. I feel like we've come a long way, even though, there's certainly constraints. But it takes people like you, having a story, telling your story, then investing, your time, your energy, and your resources into something that can also expand and help other people. And I think that's really what it's going to take. Is there anything else that you would like to share just about your story or anything just in general that you think people need to hear?
I think I've said it.
Okay.
But I don't claim to be an authority.
Yeah.
I don't claim to be the most knowledgeable, to be a doctor, to be a scientist, to be anything. But there are people that have had stories.
Yep.
And those stories have merit to them, and they've learned a lot through them. And if we're not going to listen to those stories, we're not going to learn anything.
Yep.
And it can look different than how it's looked, and it can be even better than it's been. And I think it will be through all of this, and that's my hope. But I just hope people get more help.
Yeah.
I hope more doctors start treating.
Yep.
I hope there's more collaboration. We don't have to agree, but we do need to talk.
Yes.
It doesn't need to be politicized.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I mean, that was the hardest thing when I was told to share my story, and then it came out debunking ivermectin. It just, it became highly political.
Yes.
And I just couldn't understand why nobody would listen.
Yeah.
And I had that epiphany, I guess, one time, and I was just praying. I was like, God, I can't understand. Why can't people see what I see? And why can't they know what I know? I don't get it. And he was like, yeah, Laura, I have that trouble with my message too.
Yeah.
And I was like, ooh, okay.
Yeah.
But, I think we're just called to keep sharing.
Yeah.
And so I love this podcast.
Yeah.
I love that you're doing this.
Yeah.
And that people can tell their stories.
Yeah. I mean, I feel compelled to tell the truth once I got out of a system where I felt like I couldn't. I feel like we have to, it's uncomfortable for people to hear the truth sometimes. But until we start telling that and like how we got to where we are, I don't think we're going to be able to help as many people as we can. So,
COVID was a wake up call.
Yes.
For all of us to start looking into what we're putting in our bodies.
100%.
And so people need to do that.
They do. And I tell patients that every day. I mean, I consider myself healthy before that, what I was feeding my child, but until I got sick and COVID and all that,
me too.
never. I mean, I'm reading labels differently. I'm looking at products differently. I mean, everything around me is different now. I look at it with a different lens, and that's what I tell patients. I mean, the one thing you can control is what goes in and on your body, and you can start doing that today.
Right.
You don't have to wait for a test or someone to tell you to do that. Like, you can do that right now. And that is empowering when you feel helpless and hopeless and you're sick and you can't do anything else. That is one thing you can start to do. So I just appreciate so much for you telling your husband's story and your story and for working with us. I'm really excited about future collaborations and what may come from here. I have no idea. Who knows who's going to hear this and
who knew
join
back
our
when
army.
We started this, where this would go.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for coming in today and telling us, sharing all the things that you did and all the work that you're doing and that you did being the oxygen angel during that time. Your reputation precedes you. So yeah, Dr. Vaughn told me, all the stories about you during that time. So I know so many people are just so grateful for the
y'all
things
have an
that
incredible
you did.
staff, and y'all have taken a lot of hits.
Yeah.
That should never come your way.
Yeah.
But I love getting to witness that and the courage that y'all have had.
Yeah.
Because you have treated so many people and helped so many people, and including my husband and I. So I'm thankful for that.
Yeah. It's definitely a challenging, it's hard to have a target on your back constantly, but I know, and people ask me all the time, why, what are you thinking? He saved my life, and I 100% believe in what we're doing, and I'm going to help other people.
Most people say those things out of a lack of knowledge, though.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
You know, they would claim knowledge, but it's just fed information.
Yeah.
You really have to dig.
Yeah, you do. You do. And ultimately the truth will set you free. It's not coincidence that I'm better. It is what he did. And what I trusted him to do, and now that I do for others. I mean, it is not a coincidence. There is science behind it. We're working on it, you know, getting that out there. It's from other countries right now, but, you know, ultimately, you know, he will be spearheading a lot of things that help the science reveal itself ultimately. But people,
and that's what's so cool about Microvascular Foundation.
Yes, we're
a place to do that.
Yes, we do have a place to do that, a platform, and people like you who help, you know, make that happen. So we appreciate you. Well, thank you so much for coming, and thank all of you guys for listening to Laura's story. She has, you know, been very involved in all of the things since COVID started, both personally, and now has invested her time and all of her resources and energy into helping our mission. So we hope that you have been encouraged, and certainly if you are a patient and you're listening and you know, are still finding trouble, finding the right people to get to talk to get healing, you know, please reach out. Please keep going. Please find people that you can trust who are willing to listen, or at least say they don't know, but they'll help find you help. And we hope that we have empowered you to do that today. So thank you for tuning in for another episode of The Long Haul with Summer.
Your better days are yet ahead.
Yes.